What's going on, YouTube? I figured I'd do a quick video on my Mack dump truck. Kind of give you a review, some things I don't like, some things I do like, and just kind of go over, my experience owning it for the past, 3-4 years I've owned Macks. So, yeah, let's get right into it. So the first thing I really don't care for on these Macks is they're running 3 oil filters. It's kind of a small thing as far as like me not caring for it, but yeah, they run 3 oil filters. There's 2 that are the same and one that's different. Basically the only difference is micron rating to my understanding. And I just think it's excessive, adds extra cost when you're doing your oil changes. This is on an MP7, by the way, and the MP8 as well. They both run 3 oil filters. This is a 2014 model, but to my knowledge, they've been running 3 oil filters for quite a while. I had my first truck 1 that was rolled. I bought that truck brand new, and it had the MP7, same basic setup. So they both run 3 oil filters. I've had it in a Mack. I've had 3 MP7 engines. This is the only truck I currently still own. I had a Mack Pinnacle. We had another Granite that was basically looked identical to this truck, just newer. So, but yeah, they run 3 oil filters. I think it's a little excessive, and I'm sure they have their reasoning, but like I say, when it comes to maintenance and everything, it adds cost to it. All these other engines, the Peterbilts and stuff like that, everything's running 1 filter. So yeah, that's kind of my first thing I don't really care for on these trucks. Second thing I really don't care for on these is, it's kind of a love-hate thing. So this is, all Mack truck other than the transmission. It's got an Allison in it. Everything else is Mack. So Mack axles, Mack suspension, Mack engine. But the second thing I really don't care for on these is just this. I love the design and how much it can articulate, but what I don't like is the bar, the top link. I just think it could be better designed. There's 1 bolt holding that whole top link and keeping the axle from rolling. So that's basically a big ball joint, basically a big heam. And, it can articulate and flex and all that, but it keeps the axle from wrapping. Well, this, in fact, on this truck, this was a couple of years ago, but this was wore out. So we went to replace them. And in the event of, replacing the bolt, our threads were real nasty in this. And the threads are actually directly tapped into the top of the axle housing. So long story short, we ended up having to, the threads were so bad, we tried tapping them out to different threads, different stuff, and there's only so much you can do with the limited amount of space they have inside the actual heam. So we ended up, to fix it right, we ended up actually having to replace this differential. And this truck at the time had 80,000 miles on it. So it's pretty disappointing. I've replaced these twice since I've owned it, and this truck has 186,000 miles. So I think it's just not the greatest design, personally. But yeah, those, that would be the second thing I don't care for on it. I just think, I like the design and how much it can articulate and still keep traction. But I think that they could do a better attachment point or just a little bit different design to make that, even if they threw 2 to 4 bolts in there with an assembly, I think it'd be better than 1 bolt, you're relying on the whole, just 1 bolt to hold your whole axle from twisting. And, these trucks get a lot of wear, especially being a factory dump truck. And the third thing I really don't care for on this truck, which is probably more of a spec thing, how this truck was spec'd from the factory, but this truck has dual steering boxes, which is nice, but the turning radius on it is just terrible. It's awful. And I think it's, like I said, I think it's a spec thing. My truck 1 that was newer, it did turn better, wasn't perfect. Obviously you got these wider float tires on it, but this one with 315 wides on, it barely turns. You're just making a lot of forwards and backs to turn it around, get it backed into a driveway. And like I say, truck 1 that had 385s turned a little bit better and that's a lot wider tire. So, but that's kind of the other thing I don't care for on these trucks. Fourth thing would be parts availability and just straight out information on them. When you're looking for parts, let's say, on this Peterbilt over here, or this Kenworth over here, I can pretty much go to Napa, and obviously these are older trucks, but this does apply to the newer Peterbilts as well. I can pretty much go to Napa or even O'Reilly's in a lot of cases, and you know, those are just my local parts stores. And they've got a lot of the stuff you need. I mean, just brakes, you know, brake shoes, brake drums, you go to look for, and in fact I did when I was looking to do brakes on this truck. I had to go through Mack or through someplace online, which once again, when you're paying shipping and all that, you know, the savings you have of buying it online just kind of goes out the window. So ended up having to go through Mack because places like Napa and the local parts stores, they could get them, but once again, you'd have to be paying freight on top of it. So versus like my Peterbilt and my Kenworth, when we did brakes on those trucks, it's all in stock. So that's just one example, but typically parts for Mack, Volvo, they're just not stocked. And the other issue is like when you're trying to cross-reference a part number and you have the part number for Mack or Volvo, you take that to Napa or CarQuest or any of them places, they have a hell of a time finding and cross-referencing that. So I think that Mack as a whole, this is, once again, it's my opinion, but when they put out their information for parts, I think they make it a lot more closed source, and they're trying to keep all their parts network and everything through the dealers. And I don't know, I don't agree with that. I'm sure it works for the guys that are in the cities. I'm 3 hours, almost 3.5 hours from my Mack dealer. So that kind of creates a problem for me when I need parts, when I need something. So it's always either having to be shipped overnight to me, or we got to send a driver down, and you know, like I say, that's 6-7 hours of drive time. Granted, we can get the parts. They're normally pretty good. Like the dealer has been pretty good about getting us parts. For the most part, we have had some issues in the past, but you know, I won't speak to that just because Peterbilt and Kenworth are just as bad. So anyway, that's kind of the other thing that I didn't care for on this, on these Macks, is it seems to be very closed source on a lot of their parts and just their information. Kind of leads me into the next thing, which is related. You know, even like YouTube videos, you're looking for how to work on an MP7. There's videos out there, not near as many as working on Cummins ISX, Cummins N14, 3406, you know, all that stuff. Once again, I do understand those are older engines and those engines go on a lot more platforms, but it just makes it frustrating when you're trying to learn about them and trying to get information about how to fix them. A lot of guys, if you're like me, get YouTube certified on it because, you know, straight up, a lot of times you can't afford to pay to have these things overhauled and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of the other thing, just general information, parts information. It's a lot harder to come by on the Mack that I've noticed. And the last thing for this video's purpose that I don't care for, and this is a MP7 engine once again, but one thing I do not care for is how they put, give you a long story short, I had a driver that overheated this truck, radiator cracked. Well, hey, there's another thing I don't care for. These radiators have plastic end tanks. Stupid. I mean, they're notorious for cracking. I own, like I said, 3. I actually own 4 Macks. The 4th one was a Superliner, but my Mack Pinnacle and this truck here, this Mack Granite, both the radiators cracked on the end tank. You got to replace the radiator. They're not super hard to replace a radiator, but I just think that the plastic end tanks are kind of stupid. So, like I say, long story short, that led to us having to replace the head. So head gasket, head, because everything got so hot. So when we took this head off, at the back of the head, I think it's a really stupid design. They've got the head, there's a timing cover plate, because you're all timed off the rear of the engine, which once again, I think is a stupid design. My personal opinion, it's timed off the rear of the engine. There's a plate, so you have the outer cover that covers the timing, you have the backer plate, and then you have the head. And the head to the backer plate, the only thing sealing that, there is no gasket, the only thing sealing that is Permatex. So you put, and then this is straight out of the Mack manual, it tells you to put Permatex and seal between the head and the backer plate. Now that's all pretty much low pressure. There's nothing like super high pressure going through there, but telling you from experience, we had to pull this thing back off. I got it all back together and we didn't put enough Permatex or just in the right spot. I missed a little bit and we had an oil seep out the back of the head right in that connection. So did that, pulled it all back apart, bought a whole new set of head bolts and head gasket, put it all back together, got it resealed. But I just think it's kind of a stupid design where you've got the head, the timing, the backer of the timing cover, and then the timing cover itself, and all of that. So there's 3 pieces sandwiched together essentially, and they're all sandwiched together with just RTV. I think that's a really bad design personally. I think it's stupid that you got to get to the timing cover and check the timing. I mean, in this type of truck and how this is jammed in here, you pretty much got to pull the transmission. It is a pain in the ass. Versus, like I say, once again, that 3406, I could have literally done an in-frame on that truck in less time than it took me to pull the head on this one and put it back. So I understand they're trying to kind of cram it in here. It's a smaller engine, different design, newer design. I just don't like it. It's one of my pet peeves. So that's what I got. Now moving on to what I like about these trucks. These are tough trucks. And you know, being a dump truck, they need to be. I know that's kind of how Mack got its name, is being the truck. That's how they got the Bulldog name back in you know, the early 1900s when they were first doing this from the Army. That's how it got the Bulldog. You have to look that up. But very, very tough trucks, very dependable. For the most part, I am a stickler on maintenance, but these trucks have been awesome. Like I said, I've owned 4 of them. The Superliner, I didn't really have any issues with. I replaced the compressor on it. That's pretty much it. We didn't really work that truck. That was kind of my personal move equipment around truck. My Pinnacle had, I believe, 350,000 miles on it when I got rid of it. So I put about 150,000 miles on it owning it. And, you know, we had some issues here and there, like I say, the radiator. But I mean, stout truck, it just did the work. So I think they're a very tough truck. Definitely, you know, not as rough riding as like the Superliner, but they are rougher riding than, you know, some of the air ride suspensions and stuff, but that's kind of to be expected with a spring ride suspension setup. But like I say, very tough for a dump truck setup, very stable. You know, you always felt pretty planted with these trucks. The other thing I really like about these trucks is the price point. Like I said, my first truck was a basically sister truck to this, just it was new. I bought it brand new in 2022, I believe, 21, 22. And, you know, that truck went about 70,000 miles and then the driver rolled it from falling asleep. But while I had it, great truck, price-wise, I believe that truck was about $50,000 to $60,000 less than Peterbilt and Kenworth at the same time. The availability on them was better. Once again, this was at that time. But yeah, I like the price point. They typically run a little bit lower. And, you know, it's my opinion, especially when I'm the one wrenching on it, I think all trucks break. So like I say, kind of take that for what it's worth. It's my opinion, but I did like the price point up front. That truck one I bought, I believe I was out the door for like $280,000, and Peterbilt and Kenworth at that time were like $350,000. So, you know, depending obviously on your spec and everything, but yeah, like $320,000 to $350,000. So I thought that's, you know, I mean, that's something to be said. Obviously it's, you know, it's a pretty good investment and you want to do your research, but I thought that was a heck of a plus right off the bat. The other thing I really like about these Macks, and this is, you know, the Pinnacle I had, the both Mack Granites, so this truck, the layout of the dash and the interior I really like. You know, I'm a taller guy, but even, you know, smaller guys that I've talked to, like, you don't have to reach to hit switches and, you know, just get your controls. I've had 2 brand new 589s. I've had the Kenworth. I've had, you know, I still have my Peterbilt. I've sat in a lot of different trucks, ran a lot of different trucks. I really like that about this. You don't ever feel like you're stretching or reaching for your controls and your switches, which in a dump truck application, you're going to be hitting quite a few times a day, moving around, you know. I think the visibility out of these trucks is pretty nice with the sloped hood. That's another plus. But yes, I really like the cabs. I think it's a good design. Even the newer trucks didn't have the gauge setup. They went more to like a digital display, just like everybody else is going to. But even then, I just thought like everything was laid out pretty good, easy to get to. You're not reaching for it. You can pretty much keep your back touching the seat at all times and hit all your switches just due to how you can kind of see how that's angled. So I thought that that was a really cool design, something I really liked. Another thing that I liked, and this is kind of back by the axle deal, but because of how they have the axle set up, the brake chambers are on the front side. I really like that. There's a lot of dump trucks I see. I'll kind of come around the back here. We got the bed up in the air trying to get rid of all the ice and the water out of the bed, but a lot of the dump trucks I see, because we've done quite a bit of paving, the brake chambers are sticking out the rear, like right here. And if you turn while the paver's pushing you, if you get too tight, it'll contact your brake chambers. I just think that's dumb. If you actually look at some of the trucks that we've ran with and some of the trucks that I've been around, if you look from the side, like looking from this, you'll actually see the brake chamber sticking out from back behind the tire. So that goes for backing into stuff. You know, pavers, obviously, pavers are pretty rough on stuff anyway, but I just thought that I really like that. The way Mack did this, putting the brake chambers up around the fronts of the axle, I think is very smart. They're kind of tough. You can kind of see they're twisted up out of the way, so they're not hanging lower than anything else. Like you can literally drop this thing right on this, have that fully packed, and your brake chambers up out of the way. I really like that. It's protected. Small thing, but I think it's pretty nice. So that's kind of my breakdown of what I like and don't like about these Macks. Like I say, I've owned 4. I owned a 1988 Superliner. I owned a 2015 Mack Pinnacle. I own this guy behind me. And then I bought a brand new one, which was actually my first truck. So I did that in the wrong order, but you get the point. That was a 2022 Mack Granite, same truck. Overall, great trucks. Just kind of went over the rundown of what I don't like about them, what I do like about them. But great trucks. Do your research. If you're looking for any sort of truck, Mack, Peterbilt, Volvo, Western Star, I don't care what it is. Do your research. Check around. Call the parts guys. Make sure, you know, see what your parts availability is. See the mechanics in the area if they're familiar with working on them. All that type of stuff. That'll keep you out of trouble in the long run and keep you from stretching out so far to go get parts and help on them. So, but like I said, overall, great trucks. If you guys have any suggestions or any other questions on these trucks or any of the other trucks I own, please comment down below. And if you like what I've been doing, please like and subscribe. Helps me out. Thank you.